Yes, yes, yes. All right. Cover a couple things, a few things I didn't feel like I covered on the webinar. What I was really trying to give you there is the inspiration. You're going to have to motivate yourself, but inspiration and to see that doing things are out of the ordinary are possible. Okay? You can make money in the stock market a lot of different ways. What we're doing here is really about income. And yes, it's taxed, just like at your job. But what I'm trying to do is either replace, this is what I came to it for. I needed to replace money. So I'm selling off houses, I got 15 of them, and I get X amount of cash flow per house. So what I was trying to do is create a bridge account. All right, so I'm 54, and so I can't touch until I'm 59 and a half. My wife can start to touch her IRAs. So, we might have an IRA. You might have, if you're self-employed, you got a SEP, you got a 401k. These could be Roth. When I started investing, Roth wasn't as big a deal. Okay, so I'm trying to replace income. Now, margin is borrowing. And, if you're a Dave Ramsey person or a fan, maybe you're going to have a hard time with this. But the 15 houses that I own that are rented, I have 17 properties. 3 are for me, 14 are rented. Each one of these, I put 20% down, which means I borrowed the other 80%. If you think about that, that's 5 to 1 leverage. That's leverage, guys. The reason real estate works is you leverage it. If you pay cash, your return is a lot less. People don't understand that. You think, well, if I don't have a mortgage, I'll collect more. Yes, but because in the real estate game, there's a thing called depreciation. And as long as your cash flow is under that, you're going to pay no taxes. So you would rather than have one paid for house, put 20% down on 5 houses. And your return will be exponentially larger and you'll get rich. In other words, you got to borrow. Because paying cash for one house, that could take forever. But 20% down, 20% down, 20%, oh, you're making money, right? So when you get to the 5, well, over here, you would have had to save it the whole time. By the time we get here, I got 5 houses, all appreciating, all having the loan paid down every month, all producing cash flow. You get exponentially richer over the next 5 years because you leveraged yourself 5 to 1. When we talk about margin, this is leverage as much as 4 to 1. We're not going to use it for that. That's usually intraday trading, okay? So intraday, meaning during the day. So if you're day trading, you could day trade that. I'm a day trader. So when I started my account, to be a day trader, you need at least $25,000 to be a legal day trader, and you need a margin account. Okay, well, you don't need $25,000 to do what we're doing, where we're trying to collect income. But here, watch this. So let's say you got $10,000, keeping it simple. You invest all of it. Well, I'm going to borrow another 10, not right away, but over time. And it's going to end up being more than that. I actually have more than my amount borrowed, okay? Because it's the stocks and the funds that I buy, okay? So we're going to buy funds. When you buy a fund, it's made up of what? A lot of stocks. So the fund itself is diversified. So you're not having the risk of a single stock. What blows most people out of margin? And watch this. So if I got $10,000, but I buy another 10, I can margin it, right? So I really got what? 20 grand, right? So if the market goes down 10% and we multiply this times 10, what would that be? Well, 10% of 20 is what? $2,000. So the market drops and you go down $2,000. But look, you don't go off the 20. You go off of your 10. So the market went down 10%, but your account dropped what? 20%. So it's leveraged to the upside and it's leveraged to the downside. Okay? Now, so that's an important concept. Okay? When you understand margin, that if you're like me and I got 100 and I'll have 100 borrowed, and I can still pull out money. We're going to get in that in the next time. And that's what makes it magical. Okay? So the way we're going to protect from blowing out is through diversification. We're going to buy funds, not stocks. Now, you might buy some stocks, but I'm going to break it up where 40 to 50% is in what we call anchors. These are traditional closed-end funds. Yeah, they pay a high yield, but these aren't funds. They're not going to run like Netflix. This is not Uber, right? This fund is paying you 14, 15, 16, 17% yield. We want to get paid monthly, at least 1%, hopefully more. 1.5 would be better, right? Every month, okay? Every month. But here's the thing. We're going to jack that up. We're going to leverage it, okay? And what are we going to do? At least 2x it, okay? So we're going to put our 10, we're going to put 50% in anchor funds. So what would that be? That'd be $5,000. That's of our money, okay? We're going to start putting in anchor funds. And if you check the PDF that I've sent, well, before I move forward, let's clear up this borrowing. This is not you moving your retirement account, okay? Keep that shit separate. That works. So I have a SEP IRA. I think I told you this earlier. I have an IRA in my name. I have an IRA in my wife's name. I have a cash trading account, right? And then I had my day trading account. And this is what I converted. Because it never occurred to me to do this. I would keep 30,000 so I could day trade. So I had an extra 5. Anything over the 30, I would usually push to one of these. And that way it's kind of like money I didn't have to save if I made it trading. And I don't day trade every day. And I take a few swing trades in there. But it never occurred to me to take that 30. I had 30K in there. Well, that gives you access to times 4 for day trading. I don't need that. But if we take it down, and let's say it gives you times 3, right? So we don't use all the leverage. You could even just go times 2. I'd rather go times 3. And instead of buying 30,000 of an anchor stock, and our two main ones are CLM, CRF, right? Others are like RIM, although this one pays quarterly. I hate that. You could replace it with AG and C, and there is some single stock risk there. So maybe you could add another one, ARR, and those two kind of replace RIM. Those are mortgage REITs. I wouldn't do that on everything. These are star funds. They drip at the NAV. I talked about that in the video, okay? That means they buy. The stock could be trading, or the fund over here could be trading at $8 like it is today. I think it's at $8.70. And the NAV could be $7. So when you get your 10, let's say your dividend is $70. That would give you 10 shares at $7, be $70. When the market opens, it's going to open at its last price. Your 10 shares are now worth $80. And you made $10 magically because they drip at the NAV. Now, imagine, now add zeros on this. I got friends that get $300 and $400 just from that pop, okay? Which gives you access to more margin. This is the beautiful thing. So we have to manage, if we're using E-Trade, you're only going to pay interest, guys. You're never coming off this loan. The way E-Trade is structured, it drips these at the NAV. We talked about that. That's awesome. You want that. Other brokerages don't do that. Robinhood doesn't do that. M1 doesn't do that, okay? Charles Schwab, as far as I know, doesn't do that. Other funds would be like GOF. We've got BAT. We got BXMT. We got ECC. We got quite a few of these. These are regular closed-end funds. We got USA. We got Y pays monthly, right? These are regular closed-end funds, what they call CEFs. And they tend to pay between 10 and 20%. and they go up and down. Here's a utility one, gut. So we got gut. And honestly, I would just keep adding them. Now, if you're on our newsletter, Second Income, if you're on our newsletter, we're tracking over 100 of these funds. All right? And we don't want to buy them if they're not on sale. They don't have to be an amazing sale. We'll establish a position, but we don't want to put a bunch of money, right? We're following the money flow. So if you go look at gut over here, go look at gut. We didn't buy it until it went down. And then we started picking it up. And now it's run up. Okay? So we're in the green. So we put money to work. It's now in the green. And it pays a monthly dividend of like 11%. Okay? Well, if we own all of these, I think I have 40 something in my fund. They're constantly paying. So if I go to E-Trade and I click I click earned income. You click earned income, right? Click earned income. When you click that, it'll tell you for the year, right? Mine's fluctuate between 92 and 94. And you're going to see it do that because these funds raise and lower. And, E-Trade sometimes gets bad data. And maybe you trim or sell something. So it's constantly changing a little bit. And as you add new money. But it'll slowly drift up. There's probably a video that I have attached to here where I'm talking about my dividends are $50,000. So that was just a few months ago, and we've added 40. Okay? Because I keep taking it back. So if you divide this, that's 7,900. And that's basically 800. What would that be? That's basically 2,000 a week. And if you look, I'm at 2,300. And last week was like 1,600, which averages out to about 2,000 a week. Well, as this money comes in, I'm just redeploying it back into anchors, right? But I have 50% of the money in these first few anchors. That protects me. The other thing it does is I only need 30% of my money to own this. So that's what they call maintenance. Margin maintenance is how much of your money do you need to maintain this fund in your portfolio. CLM, most of the anchors are 30. There's a few of them that are 40%. But this is 30, 30. That's 40, 30, 30, 30. 30%. That means if it's $1, it's $1, you only need 30 cents to control the dollar. Now, if you put your 30 cents and it's paying 16% yield, you're just going to get that, right? But now if we step out and we borrow 70%, remember in the house example, we had a house and we put 20% down and we borrowed 80%, right? Well, over here, we're borrowing 70% is what we're borrowing. So if we buy CLM, CRF, REM, GOF, YYY, ECC, USA, or GUT, they're all 30%. So, but we get $1. So now we're going to get the dividend yield, say it's 15% on $1. Well, how much would that be? Keeping the math simple, that'd be 15 cents, right? So we're getting it because why? It's a 15%er. Right? But how much money did we put down? We put down 30 cents. 30 cents bought $1, and the dollar is paying 15% yield. That's 15 cents. That looks a lot like half, which is a lot like 50% yield. Okay? Now, you're not going to be able to maintain that all the time. You're going to have times where you have to downsize, and we're going to talk about why that is. And you're going to have times that you might push it up, and it's more. Right now, I'm running about 60%. 60%. And so the reason this works is you got to understand the anchors. You got to understand these are regular closed-end funds. Pay 10 to 20% yield. Look around, find them in different sectors. And then we want to buy them stage ones. Okay, we don't want to buy them up here. And if you just want to get exposure, just buy a little bit and then wait. All right, so as we're collecting these dividends, we're going to add to these anchors. This is the anchor of the portfolio. We anchor a portfolio on these. Most of that up here. Okay, now we're going to kick up the risk. We're going to step out and we're going to go to, these are what we call tier 1. Okay, and I got a bunch of them I'll show you. Again, if you're on our newsletter, Second Income, there'll be a link over there. We're tracking about 100 of these. In my portfolio is a display one. Jess puts hers on there too because it's a lot smaller than mine. Hers is $34,000. Mine's $154,000. And I'm making $92,000 a year dividend. She's making $17,000. And so it shows you that it works on any time frame, any amount of money. You just need $2,000. So we've said margin is borrowing. And we said buying a house is margin. So stock margin is more dangerous. It really is, moves fast and can blow you out than a house margin. But don't make no mistake about it. You put 20% down on a house, you owe the other 80%, right? You got taxes, you got your loan. What else you got? You got taxes, loan, you got maintenance. Oh, insurance, jeez. So insurance, these are the 4 things when it comes to a house. Whatever's left, that's cash flow, right? Cash flow. Stock margin, not quite as bad. We want to do 1 to 2, maybe 1 to 3 at the right time. And what I mean by this is our balance. So if I got 100 in there, well, right now I got 153,000, right? But I've borrowed another 170. So I'm running pretty hot, you know? I'm running pretty hot. But I still have 16,000 in available withdrawal. But listen, my balance is on this though. See, if that would be 23,000. So if the market drops 10%, let's say the portfolio goes down 10%, that would be 22,300, right? That's going to come off of this. So that would take that down to what, 125, right? That's much bigger than 10%. It's going to be 20%, right? That number is bigger than this. So if it went from 153 to 125, that difference, that spread is bigger than this. You would have a margin call. So we can't let that happen. Now, part of the reason mine is so low, because it really should be about 45,000. On E-Trade, there's 3 numbers you need to know about. Your income, estimated income, right? So estimated. Your balance. So your balance, how much you got in there, right? Your balance. So estimated income, your balance, and available withdrawal, right? Available withdrawal. And so if you got 100, this will tell you how much margin we can use. To play it safe, you need to have at least 30,000 in available withdrawal. Okay? And if you keep this ratio here, you're going to do pretty good. Now, some of you got trading skills. That means you could put on some swing trades. Maybe on a account that size, you're doing trades anywhere from 1,000 to maybe 3,000 if you're doing less. And if it's a blue chip, maybe you do even bigger, right? So a couple I got on right now, Merck, Hershey, and Campbell's. Okay, these are blue chip stocks. I think it's like 5, 4, and 3. And sometimes you don't have enough money. You got what you got. All I'm trying to make on these, I'm doing little B&B trades. I might make anywhere from 500, I don't know, maybe 800. We might catch a dividend or 2, right? Plus the price appreciation. I think the Hershey trade, it was like just at $600. Well, $600 in this account, what can we do with it? We can buy 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. So $600 could buy 1 to 3 in these anchors. I don't mind doing that. Now, in the other video, we'll get into tier 2 and 3, and this is where the yield goes crazy, and we start buying shit paying 50 to 100%. But we got to watch the portfolio. We need to watch estimated income, our balance, and available withdrawal. We can be all in and borrowed and still hit that debit card, still buy tires, still pay bills because we can still draw from it. And we're collecting dividends every week.